Hey guys, so today I'm gonna tell my story and basically my journey from beginning of high school to now, because it's involved more than just alopecia for me. And it started when I was 14. I started to lose my hair, and it wasn't like significant hair loss, but it was thinning. And how we noticed it is one night after volleyball practice, I went down to my parents and I was like, there's something really soft in the back of my head. I thought it was conditioner because it felt like smooth like conditioner was, and laid down and realized it was just a tiny little spot. And my parents and I weren't concerned at the time because I started high school and there's stress from high school, and my hair was thinning a little bit, but I wasn't losing any more than I wasn't losing an abnormal amount. And so they were like, oh, you're fine. I was tired at the time too, but like every high schooler is tired. Join the club. So it wasn't a big like red flag. And when I was super little, I had also lost a spot of hair. It was a huge spot though, and my mom went to her hairdresser friend, was like, what's happening to my 4-year-old? And she was like, oh, kids cycle through their hair. And within like a month, I didn't even have a spot anymore, and nothing like that had ever happened again. So there wasn't any reason to be concerned about it. And so I continued to have thinning hair, and then I went to homecoming and I had a great time. And when I was laying down on my bed and my mom was playing with my hair, I was telling my parents about homecoming, and my mom goes, whoa. And she turned my head like this so that she could show my dad. And there was a spot, and it was about this big on the back of my head, and it was a perfect circle. And that was when they were like, red flag. It shouldn't have gotten bigger. It should have gone away. And at the time I was getting more and more tired, and I was playing volleyball, and I was becoming super uncoordinated in a way that I had never been before. And so they were like, it's time to go see someone. So we went and saw a pediatrician in December. So that when we first started noticing the thinning hair was October-ish. And then we went and saw a pediatrician, and she was like, yeah, there's some things on your charts that are high, but it's not too bad. And my mom was like, do we need to go get it? She's like, you should get it checked out. And my mom was like, now or can it wait? And she's like, oh, I can wait. So we're like, oh, there's no rush. We scheduled a doctor's appointment late in January for my mom's doctor, who I couldn't see right away because she was having family problems at the time. And so there wasn't any rush to go see a doctor. And my hair continued to thin out, and I was becoming really self-conscious about it and didn't want anyone to see my baldness. And so we went to a dermatologist, and we're like, why is she losing her hair? And the dermatologist was like, oh, you have alopecia areata. It's just bald spots that manifest themselves in perfect circles. It makes sense. You have vitiligo, which is the skin bleaching disease that Michael Jackson had. I have that on my hip and some on my arm, but you can't really tell because I'm so pale. And so she's like, we can shoot you up with steroids with a needle about this long in the back of your head, and it should stimulate your hair growth. And I was like, no thank you. And my mom was quiet. She let me make the decisions for all these things because she knew it was a process that I needed to have control over, and I really appreciate her for that. And so we're like, great, you have alopecia, that's why you're losing your hair. We thought we were done, and I continued to be more and more tired, and school was so hard, and I had no memory, short-term, long-term. I had to be guided to all of my classes by friends because I would sit in a class, bell would ring, I would leave the class, walk through the door, walk down the hall a little bit, and then turn around, come back to the same class because I didn't remember being in it not 2 minutes ago. And so that was kind of a red flag that I needed to see someone sooner. So we started looking for someone else that we could see sooner than my mom's doctor, who's named Pam, and I love her. And at the time, my brother was bringing the clumps of hair that I left in the shower to my parents, saying, she has not cleaned up the hair. And I have 3 little brothers, and this was the middle one who I shared a bathroom with, and he's like, this is disgusting. And yeah, it's gross, I get that. But then it slowly started to get more and more to the point where he brought a huge one. He's like, Ryan's not cleaning up the hair, but look at how much it is. And he started to become really concerned, and you clean it up for me. And I didn't know this until after. They didn't tell me until after all of this. Jared, I love you. But as I lost more hair, I was so self-conscious. I started hiding it with hats, and I would braid over my holes so that you couldn't see it. And one time I had a braid in the back, and then it had a little one coming out, and these boys were walking behind me, and they go, ew, does that girl have a rat tail? That's disgusting. And I was devastated. I could not believe that they noticed. I hoped no one had noticed. I thought the braiding was enough, and so I started to wear hats all the time, 24/7. And then we weren't allowed to wear hats in my school, like in classrooms, and I had this one teacher that was like, take it off, and I was like, I'm not taking it off, you can't make me. And she's like, fine. She gave up. She's like, next time you're getting a detention. So I went home and I was like, please mom, you have to find a way for me to be able to wear a hat in school. And so she called up the school, and she's like, it's religious reasons she's wearing a hat. And that was the end of the conversation. They never made me take off the hats. But then my friends were like, why do you get to wear hats? I shouldn't call them friends, acquaintances, because that's kind of what they were. And then one day one of them snatched my hat off my head, and David, I'm calling you out for this because it was a hard time in my life, and I yelled at him. I instantly covered my head as soon as he snatched it off, and I was like, give me my freaking hat back, except I swore, and it was not good. But I was so cripplingly anxious, and just I was living with all this insecurity of my hair loss, and it was thinning, and my friends didn't know because I didn't really tell them about anything. They just were like, what's with this new thing with hats? And my best friend Sydney hates this about me because I never share anything with her, and yeah, besides the point. But it got so bad, and my memory was so awful, and I had no muscle memory either, so volleyball was terrible. And Pam finally was like, this is what's wrong with you, we can get you fixed, but it's gonna take time. So my grades were still going down, and everything was just bad. I was so anxious and insecure. My mom was like, you should shave your head, and my dad was like, but you should keep it, maybe it might come back. Pam says she can fix you, there's still a chance. And what we found out is I have Hashimoto's, so it wasn't just alopecia, it was Hashimoto's, and Hashimoto's is where your thyroid and your brain stop talking, so your brain and your immune system and your thyroid freak out, and your brain kind of shuts things down because it's upset and at your thyroid and everything else are unhappy. And so my hormones were thrown out of balance, and alopecia is where your immune system attacks your hair follicles, so hair follicle, hair and hair follicle, and the cells will come and attack the hair follicle, and boop, and the hair will pop out, and that's why they don't grow any hair. So I knew it was more than just losing my hair. Alopecia is only hair loss, it doesn't do anything else to you. The Hashimoto's is what was messing with my brain, and it was just hard for me to have this thing that only old ladies get, and I was a young lady, and I had all the opposite symptoms, and that's why no one could figure it out, why this 15-year-old had an old lady disease. And it was just a mess. And finally I was debating on whether I should, and my mom was like, she told my dad, she's like, you wanting her to keep your hair is crippling her on the inside. And so my dad and I cried to each other, and he's like, you don't have to hold on to it for me. And I was like, I'm still not sure if I'm ready. And then I saw this girl at school, and I could tell that she was wearing a wig, and I think she had trichotillomania. We never actually talked, and that's where you like are self-puller, and it's a nervous tick. And I saw it slip off a little bit one day, and how she was a reflection of how I felt, and I didn't want to be that anymore. So I went home and I called my friends, and I was like, this is happening now. And Sydney couldn't make it, and because she had soccer practice, and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't wait. And my dad wasn't even home. I couldn't wait for him to get back from work. But Emma, one of my best friends, came over, and we chopped my hair off, and it was so freeing to finally not have this crippling anxiety loom over me of like, this is your hair and I'm bald, and it was just, I'm done. And seeing my little brother's reactions, it was a traumatizing event for them, like watching their faces and, oh my gosh, this is happening. And I was free, but I just, people are petty. I'm gonna say that. You will shave your head, ladies and gents, if you do, and you'll find out that people are petty really fast. The church I was in, that I'd grown up in, some of the reactions were just so dehumanizing, and things they said to my parents were not okay, and others were so amazing. They're like, what can we do for you? And that was great, and I so greatly appreciate them for it. And told my volleyball team, was like, I don't have any muscle memory because I have Hashimoto's, and that's why I have to relearn my approach every day before practice. And they're like, oh, Ryan's bald now, and that makes sense why she is not very good, but she tries really hard. And I had all that, and at the time I was on home hospital care, so I wasn't in school, so I didn't have to deal with that reaction yet. But finally, once I was healthy enough to go back, and the reaction from my peers in my class was just weird, to say the least. And some of them were really great about it, just like the church experience, and others, they're like, do you want to be our project? So those were things that were said to my friends, and just hearing my friends tell me like what was asked, because no one would ask me. So I could hear all these people talking around me, but no one would come to me and ask. And that was probably the most frustrating part for me, is the fact that no one wanted to talk to me. And then another thing is, I was trying to get back in school. I was in SAT mode. I needed to apply to colleges, and I went home one day and I just flopped on my parents' bed and I was bawling. And they're like, oh my gosh, what did they say? Like, they thought it was about my baldness. And I turned up to them and I said, I failed a test. And I think they were really taken aback, and they're like, out of all the things she could be crying about right now, she's crying about a failed test. I'd never failed anything before, probably in my life. I was a straight A student. I had photographic memory, basically, so I didn't have to study. And they asked me how I studied, and I was like, I looked at it a few times, and then I took the test. And they laughed. They're like, welcome to being human. You were a genius before, and you're not now. And I think that was the hardest part for me, was I lost my brain, and I've never gotten it back, but I remember a time when I did have it, and when it was just an instant click for me, and I didn't have to overthink. I call it overthink. I didn't have to study, and I didn't have any study habits. So it was, I'm bald, I have to relearn how to learn, because I never really learned in the first place. I just knew. And then my volleyball was slowly getting back on track as I was getting healthier, and I did have muscle memory, but I made it despite my grades. I did it. I went to college. I finished 4 years in college, and while I was in college, I hit another health hiccup. We found out that I had hemolytic anemia and hyperglycemia, and that was why for 2 years I was not the greatest. I thought I was out of shape. It turns out I was functioning off of 75% oxygen, and you need 95 to 100 to function. So they're pretty sure adrenaline and strength of will were what made me function. But those were all the things that I had to deal with, and just the process of realizing that bald is beautiful, and I don't care what other people think. I love myself, and this is who I'm gonna be. And figuring that out through all of this was just amazing and an adventure, and I got to meet so many cool people because of it. Because once I let go and I got over the fact that I'm bald and I'm not gonna have my brain back like before, but I can still be me, it was just freeing. If you want to watch the longer version, I'm putting it up on YouTube. I'll explain more in detail things, but thank you for watching and listening to my story, and if you have any questions, let me know.